I felt really good in Game 4 of the season against Oak Harbor. I threw a perfect touch pass over the DB's head for 30 yards to start off the game, but on the very next play, I threw my first interception. Coach had completely switched the game plan up on me against Oak Harbor. He had me throwing the ball every play, whether it was a screen, a post route, or a slant. I was frustrated with myself for throwing that initial pick because I assumed he was going to limit my passing. We started running the ball a little bit more, but he still gave me opportunities to pass, and then I threw my second interception of the game, and then the DB fumbled the ball on the return. And I'll be honest, I could already hear it coming. Scouts saying I can beat up on bad record teams, but I get flustered versus the top teams in our division. I already have to fight the stigma of being a run-first quarterback because of my athletic background, and this is not going to help. I'll be honest though, I feel like my head hasn't really been in it since I started seeing this girl, Emma. See, Emma was dating my friend and teammate, Gio Saria. Yes, Gio Saria, as in the wide receiver I throw the ball to pretty consistently. And when you're a teenager, sometimes you make a dumb mistake, but I don't know if you can call it a mistake if it happens like more than 10 times. Anyways, while the team bus was loading up, getting ready to go to Richland for our next away game, Emma and I were in the hallway of the school on the 3rd floor. We were tonguing each other's mouth holes when Mr. Few, my photography teacher, caught us in the hallway. Now, Blanchette is a private Catholic school, so doing any sort of PDA on school grounds was heavily frowned upon, and Mr. Few was kind of a creep. Several girls at the school had told me that he made them feel uncomfortable in his class. Now, see, the weird thing was he told us to go our separate ways and that he'd be in contact with our parents, but then I noticed that when Emma walked away that he started to walk in the same direction as her. So I decided with my spidey senses that I would follow them to make sure this dude wasn't up to anything. At one point he did stop her down the hallway and he had a separate conversation with her from the one he already had with the two of us. So I decided to make my appearance and show myself so Mr. Few knew I was there, and he reminded me that I was going to be late for the bus. And then I said back to him that we were undefeated with me at QB up to this point, so they're probably not going to leave without me since it was only like 2 minutes after we were supposed to leave. He reiterated more firmly and bluntly that I should leave immediately. So I had to think on my feet. I made up the excuse that Emma had borrowed my TI-84 calculator and she had it in her locker and I needed it tonight for some calculus homework. And I'm in like pre-algebra as a senior, so I am barely passing that class. That got him to leave us alone. And then I had a conversation with Emma afterwards, and she told me that he was being really pushy in their conversation together. And I asked her if she wanted me to report this to anybody like the dean or some teachers, and she just told me that she'd rather not for the time being. So after all of that happened, I loaded up on the bus about 5 minutes late, and we headed to Richland, Washington. Now, if you don't know the geography of Washington State, Richland is kind of more towards Oregon, kind of more towards Idaho. It's in the southeast sort of corner of Washington State. And we actually had a scout that was coming to watch me at the game and a couple of my teammates. And this guy specifically was coming from Oregon State. He actually told my coach that he was interested in me at quarterback, but he was worried about my lack of arm talent. Coach relayed that message to me before the game, and so I was on a mission against Richland to prove that I can make basically all of the throws that you'd want me to make at Oregon State. And I'm not going to lie, I started to force the ball a little bit. I started to throw some passes that weren't really there, some out-of-body sort of plays. I will say that Gio Saria was doing really well in the slot for us, but even though we had a 14-3 lead before the end of the first half, we tried to score again, and instead I threw another interception. Coach started having us run more option plays, and we scored our last touchdown of the game to give us a 20-3 lead. But I did have some more turnover struggles in this game, but we still come out with a victory 20-6. And I'll be honest, my stat line was nothing really crazy. Most of my teammates did a lot of the work for me, as I finished with only one touchdown. It was a rushing TD. And I finished 13 for 24 passing for 200 passing yards. And we ended up getting scholarships from Oregon State after the game and Boise State. So we did make progress and we got that scholarship from Oregon State. And in our next matchup, we played Mercer Island, who was 0-6. And on our first possession, I tried to hurdle somebody, and I fumbled the ball instead. Of course, you know, I got some experience with hurdling from my track background, but not with pads on. So that made me kind of jump weird. And then on our next possession, I took another sack. This time, again, my first time ever taking a safety. And so it's not looking good. We're down 2-0 to an 0-6 team, but I kind of use my legs to scramble outside of the pocket, extend the play, and find Ostrander, one of my top wide receivers. And then later in the drive, we find Nguyen on a curl, and he beats his man with his quick acceleration. And right here, I should have had Nguyen again for a bomb TD. Again, my deep ball accuracy has historically been pretty rough, but I find Bill Wilson on the very next play, our backup running back, for a 34-yard pass down the middle. And then again, on an option play, I find Bill Wilson, and he takes it all the way for a TD, making some plays that backup running back, kind of fighting for Howell's job. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows as I scramble outside the pocket at the end of the first half, up 13-9, and I fumbled the ball, and Mason recovers, and he's going to take it all the way for a touchdown to give Mercer Island, again, an 0-6 team, a 16-3 lead. But we do find a win on another drive in the third quarter for a touchdown on a slant route. And on the very next drive, we find Weisbecker, our tight end, who does all of the work after the catch, breaking a tackle, taking it for a TD. And then we find Giosaria over the middle. The middle part of the field was pretty wide open against this Mercer Island team. We find Hussein underneath on a short out. He doesn't quite get into the end zone, but on the very next play, we're on a triple option, and I can easily run it in for the TD. And we explode in the second half to take a significant lead over Mercer Island and come away with a victory. And this is the kind of game that I probably should have had against Richland, but we ended up getting the Oregon State scholarship at QB anyways, so it's no big deal. But 4 total TDs, 40 rushing yards, and a good amount of passing yards as we get scholarships from Maryland and Washington State. Additionally, we've garnered some interest from 3 more teams, and we decided to stick with USC. It's interesting to see, as a track and basketball athlete switching to football for 1 year, what sort of teams that we could potentially go to.